Hello, Jackets fans, and welcome to Boom and Gloom, a Columbus Blue Jackets fan podcast where I discuss the boom, the good, and the gloom, the bad, of CBJ hockey. I am your host, Anthony, also known as Whaler Jacket in the social media world, and I am North America's longest suffering hockey fan. No one in North America, as far as I know, has been suffering for as long or as much as I have, following two lovable loser franchises, which are the Whalers and the Blue Jackets, for over 40 years. Over 40 years. Yeah, that's a long time. Before I begin today, I just want to make everyone aware I am an elementary school teacher by day, and I have been doing a lot of talking. And yeah, maybe even some yelling this week. It has taken a toll on my voice a little bit, so I apologize if I sound a bit raspy. I may have to, clear my throat a few times, but I'm going to get through this episode. It just may sound a little different than usual. I want to take a brief moment to reestablish why I do this podcast. It is certainly not for the fame. I don't have that many followers or subscribers. And it's not for the fortune. I haven't monetized this podcast in any way, shape, or form. I have no sponsors or anything like that. And it's not because I feel like I'm an expert on the Blue Jackets who should have people hear his wise words of wisdom about the team. No, and it's not that I love my own voice. All right? No, okay. I'm just an average fan who enjoys talking about the Blue Jackets. I honestly don't have many friends who are Jackets fans. So I don't have many people to talk about the team, with, all right? And I love talking about the team. So I figured I would put it out into the podcast universe in case anyone happens to be interested in hearing what I have to say. I have listened to several other fan podcasts, and some of them I honestly can't be much worse, okay? Not trying to sound mean, but and the ones I'm thinking of, they have way more followers than I do. As bad as I think they are, I still listen to them because it's hockey talk about the CBJ. So I still listen. And if I'm being honest here, one of the most popular ones, I don't find Bob McElligott particularly engaging or much of a hockey expert for that matter. But I still listen. It's Blue Jackets Hockey Talk. So this podcast that I do, it's my contribution to the CBJ podcast world. I'm not doing it because I think my voice, my opinion, is any better than anyone else's. I just like talking about the Blue Jackets. I enjoy it. And might I add, considering how bad this team has been over the years, I find it a bit cathartic. Okay? It's cathartic for me to do this podcast and just vent about them. Just vent about the team. Commiserating with fellow fans has truly helped me to stay sane. The Blue Jackets are, as you know, if you are listening to this, one frustrating hockey franchise. And they made some big news this week. That's what this episode is all about. The firing of Dean Evason and the hiring of Rick Bowness as head coach. Let's think back for a moment to late summer 2025. Dean Evason is hired as coach. I was ecstatic. Dean Evason is my all-time favorite hockey player. He played for the Whalers when I really started to get into the sport, like when he really started to get into hockey and appreciate it. I admired him so much that I chose number 12 when I played high school hockey. He was number 12 when he played for the Whalers. So when it was time to choose my number, I said number 12. And I still wear number 12 to this day as a 49-year-old beer league hockey player. He made that big of an impression on me. An undersized, middle six grinder who didn't score all that often, but he played with heart. That was me as well. In addition to my personal affection for the guy, he had also proven himself to be a respectable head coach in the league, with the Minnesota Wild, of course. And coming after Brad Larson, the Mike Babcock debacle, and Pascal Vincent, this was huge. This was massive, all right? Dean was well known for squeezing every little bit out of his players. He was known for getting the most bang for the team's buck. And I thought this was exactly what the Jackets needed. And when tragedy struck and the world lost Johnny Gaudreau to a jerkwad driver under the influence of alcohol, Dean was there. He was there to guide and coach the team. And he did a fantastic job of it last year. No one expected the Jackets to do as well as they did. But they exceeded all expectations. Many guys had career years, all under the leadership of Dean Evason. But now that I said that, I have to say, did Evason truly deserve all those kudos? That's what I find myself asking now. And spoiler alert, I do believe he deserves kudos. But I'm just wondering if he got more kudos than he really truly deserved. Let me explain, all right? I'm not sure what the consensus is, but here's my hypothesis. I feel that the Jackets season last year began to unravel as soon as the outdoor game took place. After that, I think the Jackets went on to lose like 12 of their next 14 games, something like that. I don't know if that's the exact stat. I believe there are two reasons why that happened. Number one, the outdoor game was a huge event. That Stadium Series game was just massive. Okay, second highest attended hockey game of all time. Once in a lifetime for some of those players. Not every one of those players is going to get to do a Stadium Series or outdoor game again. It was something to be excited about and something to look forward to. After that game, I can understand if there was a bit of a letdown among the players. And then number two, the Jackets were playing above expectations, at least in some part due to the fact that they were playing for Johnny. They were playing for Johnny Gaudreau, and let's face it, when such a tragedy occurs, you will always remember your fallen friend. But at some point, you do move on. So that extra oomph the Jackets received as they played for Johnny, it began to wear off. Okay, and again, he was not forgotten at all. But that extra motivation, that extra drive, it began to wear off. Okay, and you can't tell me that when a situation like that occurs, that extra drive, that extra motivation is going to last forever. It just doesn't. I'm just being logical here. And now, sure, they did catch lightning in a bottle towards the end and rattle off a 6-game winning streak at the end of the season. But again, my hypothesis here, I think that was more of an anomaly than Dean Evason's excellent coaching. So after the outdoor game and after the trade deadline, that's when the team started coming back down to earth, coming back to the team they truly were. And what we have seen this season so far has been merely a continuation of that same team. Don Waddell did not make any defensive or goaltending upgrades. And he made minimal forward changes. So we essentially walked back the same team as last year. A team that played far above expectations and then came back down to earth. This is that same team. And I'm sure Dean Evason played a role in that. Okay, he provided stability and some credibility based on his winning seasons in his Minnesota career. But I question how big of a role he played. Was it more about Johnny Gaudreau's passing and the excitement and motivation for the outdoor game? Or was it more of a combination with his coaching? And I don't know. But I will say this, I am really torn about this firing. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, to be honest. I am very happy, though, that someone in this organization, Don Waddell and management in this case, that they finally decided what we were seeing this season is unacceptable and did something about it. I'm glad they recognized that and took action. I'll get into the Rick Bowness hire in a bit, but focusing on Evason here, his coaching definitely had a lot of us fans questioning what in the heck he was doing at times. And I'm sure it must have crossed Don Waddell's mind too. So let's see. Danton Heinen on the second line, Isaac Lundstrom on the second line, Isaac Lundstrom in overtime, not starting Adam Fantilli early in overtime, Cole Sillinger on the first line, Kent Johnson on the fourth line, never seeming to use a timeout to the team's benefit. Then you had the whole Chinnikov situation. And then, who can forget all the third period collapses? All those blown leads. A lot of that, admittedly, is on the players. Okay, they're the ones on the ice. They're the ones playing the game. But it also falls on Dean Evason and his coaching staff as well. Couldn't motivate, couldn't strategize, couldn't lead. So yeah, I had problems with a lot of the coaching decisions Dean was making. And not just me, but many other fans as well. What I'm saying here is that I'm happy a decision was made, that a change was needed. But as I said, I'm torn, okay? I'm not sure how I feel. Because as glad as I am about the change, and admittedly unhappy I was with a lot of Dean's coaching decisions and strategies, I still wonder if this was the best idea long-term for this franchise. As I said in my last episode, I'm trying to think about the big picture here. Is this team a playoff caliber team? Maybe. Okay. Maybe enough to make the Stanley Cup playoffs, had they not blown so many leads and played better overall. But are they truly built for a Stanley Cup run? I emphatically say, no, they are not. So was it worth it to make a change now and go all in? What if Bowness helps turn the ship around, but not quite enough to even get to the playoffs? What happens then? Well, I'll tell you. Your draft pick, your first round draft pick, is not going to be as high. And I've already talked at length about how the Jackets cupboard is bare with a lack of high-end prospects. Now, I'm not going to go back into why that is, okay? I dealt with that in previous episode, but it happened, okay? The Jackets need more prospects. They need more high-end prospects. They have really, I'm not going to say no one waiting in the wings, but nobody that really excites me that says, "Oh yeah, he's up and coming and he's going to, when he gets to the big club, he's going to make some waves." No, we don't have anybody like that. Nobody down in Cleveland or elsewhere. So we need more high-end draft picks. They need more prospects. And this is supposedly a deep draft as well. So my thought is, would it have been better suited, or would the team have been better suited for Waddell to tough out the year with Dean Evason? The team is just simply not built for a deep playoff run. They're simply not ready yet, at least in my humble opinion. Best case, you get in the playoffs and maybe win a round, maybe. Okay, huge maybe win round 2. I mean, that's a huge maybe. But that's it. That's as far as you're going to get. Is that worth it? Is the experience that the players get from just making it to the playoffs worth it? I don't know for sure. But maybe Waddell does. Maybe he knows something I don't know. But by making this move, Waddell is saying that he has that much faith in the current roster, and I just don't see that. I don't see that myself. Now, I love the idea of making a change, but maybe fire the assistant coach now, and more on that in a bit. And if things don't improve for the rest of the season, if things continue to spiral here, then you fire Dean. Maybe in the offseason or closer to the end of the year. If we improve now, we better improve enough to make the playoffs. If not, then all it's doing is hurting the team in the long run by getting lower draft picks. So again, I say, would it have been better to finish out the year with Dean Evason as head coach? When you think about it, he hasn't had a whole lot of time with the team. I mean, a season and a half, that was it. And again, this is after the team overachieved last season. So Dean, he didn't have a long time. And to add to that thought, Don hasn't really made his mark on this team yet. Like, at least not significantly. This is still mostly Yarmo's team. Dean hasn't had a chance to coach Don's team yet. He has only coached Yarmo's team. But my main point, I cannot say it enough, it's about the prospects. We desperately need them. So again, I'm torn. Okay, there's the happy part of me, but the not so happy part wonders if Don should have just let the season play out just as is. Let Dean finish the season as coach. See if he was able to turn things around. And if so, if he did turn things around, great. It proves Evason was a good choice and should stay on as coach with Don continuing to make tweaks to the roster. They would have taken a step forward. If not, you make a change in the offseason. You fire Dean, and you reap the rewards of a higher first-round draft pick. Something, again, you desperately, desperately need. So I'm not sure, guys. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I am really torn about this. I slept on it. I've read lots of articles and feedback from, supposed experts and other fans, and I just don't know. I'm still torn. But one more thing that I am wondering about, and that is, did Dean Evason lose the room? We see what happens on the ice with this team, but we have no idea what is going on behind the scenes. What happens in that locker room? We have no idea. Based on what I've heard and seen, Dean seemed to be kind of I'm not going to say standoffish. I'll say he's like he's a stand aside guy. I never saw any clips of him giving locker room pep talks. I only saw assistant coaches doing that. And I read that he didn't really, very often at least, talk to players in the locker room after games. He left it to the players to talk. With all that in mind, I would completely understand if it rubs some players the wrong way. I also read something on Reddit suggesting that Dean was not taking his job seriously enough. Now, this was a wild rumor, and it was from someone who claimed to know someone inside the Jackets organization who stated that Dean would cut practices short and then he would head to the golf course whenever he could. Is that true? Probably not, but I guess it's possible. Possibly true. That's the stuff that we as fans don't hear about, though. And we probably shouldn't hear about it, to be honest. I mean, what happens in the locker room, that's for the team and the team only. So, as the old phrase goes, what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. So we don't know for sure. We don't know what went on behind closed doors, what went on in that locker room. As fans, we have a very limited view of our favorite team's ongoings. We just don't know. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe he started rubbing players the wrong way, and when you lose a room, it's all over. Players have to respect their coach. They don't have to like him, but they do have to respect him. And once that coach's message just goes stale, then there's very little chance it ever turns around. Players like Chinnikov, of course. But I also wonder about Kent Johnson. Did players get in Dean's doghouse and then find themselves unable to come out? Trapped inside no matter what they did. Can't prove it. Can only speculate. But I think it's a possibility that makes sense. And lost in my ranting so far today is the fact that the Jackets also fired their assistant coach, Steve McCarthy. This, to me, and apparently many other fans, is extremely significant. McCarthy has been the coach of this team's defense since 2020, I believe. And also their shorthanded unit, I believe. So 2020, that was the COVID season. And guess what has been kind of a problem in those 5 years since? Defense, yes. Penalty killing, yeah. It was long overdue for a change to be made with regard to the coaching of defense and special teams. Long overdue. A fresh start and a new perspective is just what the doctor ordered again, in my opinion. And finally, let's talk about who the Jackets hired to replace Dean Evason. That is Mr. Rick Bowness. My knee-jerk reaction was a surprise. Okay, it was a surprised one. If I were the GM making a change at head coach, Rick Bowness would not have been at the top of my list. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't even have a list. Okay, I can't even give you the name of someone I would have chosen instead of Bowness. Okay, I've heard Jay Woodcroft's name thrown about, but not for me. So I was just a little surprised. Bowness is 70 years old, maybe even closer to 71. I was worried, again, knee-jerk reaction here. I was worried that he would be too much of an old guy in a young locker room. We need someone who can relate to and work with the younger players on this team, to unlock their potential and take them to the next level. Looking at Bowness's all-time coaching record, I'm not impressed. But then after thinking about it for a while and doing a little research, his hiring has grown on me. He has a reputation for having a good rapport with his players, a reputation for changing the culture of a team in a positive way. And although his overall coaching record isn't the best, his last two stops in Dallas and Winnipeg have been very successful. And again, looking further into this, his overall record looks worse than it actually is because he coached a very bad Ottawa Senators team at one point who were in like a transition period. Okay, they were in a transition period, for lack of a better term. So that skews his record. But my thought here is that this may be just a trial hire. Bowness is going to go to the end of the season, and if it's a positive one, he'll come back for a year, maybe two. Maybe get things turned around and going in a positive direction before turning the helm over to a new, maybe younger coach. My thought, Trent Vogelhuber, current coach of the Jackets AHL team in Cleveland. Bring him up next season as an assistant coach. Have him serve as an assistant coach to Bowness. Then, if and when he's ready, give him the reins when Bowness decides to retire. Now, I admit I don't know a whole lot about Vogelhuber, but I do know he's a highly respected coach, and he's considered a very good coach. The Jackets certainly don't want him to become the next Jared Bednar for another team. I mean, that's just downright ridiculous, okay? Thinking about that. The Jackets had him and let him go to Colorado, and he becomes a world-class head coach and Stanley Cup champion team. Now, I understand, because at the time, I believe Tortorella was the coach, and you're not going to fire Tortorella to give Vogelhuber a chance, at least not at that point. But it's what happened. And then Barry Zito goes to Florida, builds a 2-time Stanley Cup championship team. And then Stefan Lefebvre, he had his contract terminated because he refused to take a COVID vaccine. Well, now he's in Florida, and Florida is a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. So we don't want Vogelhuber to follow a similar path. I would say we want to keep him in the organization. So start him off as the assistant coach. If things go well, then when Bowness retires, Vogelhuber can step in. All right, a couple more quick thoughts before I get out of here, and two of those thoughts involve Yegor Chinakhov. First, I wonder what would have happened if Don Waddell chose to hold on to him and then fired Evason. Would Chinnikov want to stay? Would his game improve? There's obviously no way to tell, but the timing of this is just a little baffling to me. It says to me that the decision to fire Evason was not a long brewing one. I think it really started to become a possibility with the loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were up 4-1 and ended up losing in overtime, 5-4. I think that might have been the last straw. I think that if Don was considering it before that Pittsburgh game, he may have held on to Chinny a little bit longer. And there's no way to tell, obviously, and I doubt Don would ever admit it, but it's just my hunch here. And my other thought about Chinnikov, the Y has been dropped from his first name. Now it's just Egor, Igor Chinnikov. There are rumors that suggest he has wanted to do this for a while, but the Jackets refused for some reason. I don't even remember why they refused that. Not sure of the story there, but I hope that's not the case. That would just be stupid and disrespectful of the Jackets to do that. So good luck. Good luck, Igor. Good luck, Igor Chinnikov in Pittsburgh. Just not against the Blue Jackets. One other quick thought. The Jackets signed another Igor Zamula, to a contract. So far, I've liked what I've seen from him. He has size, he could play physical, and he's had some pretty darn good passes. I look forward to seeing what he'll end up bringing to the lineup for the last half of the season. For a team in desperate need of physical shutdown defensemen, I truly hope Zamula can fill that void. I also wanted to mention a correction as well. In my last episode, I mentioned that Erik Gudbranson had a concussion, and I was worried about his long-term future. Well, when I'm wrong, I admit it. I admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong. Gudbranson has some kind of hip issue, I guess, not a concussion. As I record this, he's actually even skating again. So I was way off. All right, I'm not sure where I heard that he had a concussion. So let's just forget I said it, shall we? As I said at the start of this episode, I am not an expert on this team. I'm just a fan, and while I read lots of articles, lots of posts about the Blue Jackets, a lot of online forums, a lot of social media sources, I still miss stuff. All right, last night the Jackets played their first game with Rick Bowness as head coach. I would say it went well, but not amazingly well. They ended up winning 5-3. Looked for a moment there that the Jackets were going to cough up that third period lead and blow it again, but they actually held on this time with Boone Jenner scoring a goal with like a minute and a half left. So that was pretty cool. So the Rick Bowness era has begun. And I know this is just a one-game sample size, but from what I saw, I really think this move may end up helping Kent Johnson find his game. Kent Johnson looked noticeable last night, like more noticeable than I've seen him in a while. So hopefully this is the start of something really good with Kent Johnson. All right, and that's all I got for this episode. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope you've enjoyed what I had to say. Thanks for stopping in and listen to me rant and rave about the Jackets. Feel free, you can always reach out to me, connect with me. You can find me at Whaler Jacket on, all those social media sites like Instagram and Blue Sky, or you could just send me an email. Just send it to whalerjacket@gmail.com. Good old-fashioned email. I welcome your comments, your questions, your suggestions. As I've said before, the whole reason I do this podcast is because I love talking about the Blue Jackets and have really no one to talk with. So please, feel free to reach out. In the meantime, this has been Boom and Gloom. I hope you'll come back and give it a listen again next time. Until then, go Jackets. Take care, everyone.